Hi everyone, I'm Arohan Naidoo, and today I'm going to be talking to you about my journey with Pi. If any of you have been following the DevConf Twitter handle, you'd see that I've got an awesome Raspberry Pi kit here up for grabs. So whoever can tweet the answer to this question and the best presenter shot of me stands a chance of winning the prize. The question is, what is one of the recommended memory cards for use with Windows 10 IoT Core? So, to begin, I'm sure most of you remember the last time you got a new device, the excitement of unwrapping it, getting it out of the box, and taking it out, the new smell you get, and look into the box to see what else you get. I was just excited when I got my Raspberry Pi to get it out of the box and start playing with it. However, all I found was this, a miniature looking motherboard. So what do I do with this? What's next? So doing some research, I figured out that IoT, what is IoT? Does anyone here not know what IoT is? Everybody knows what IoT is? Cool. So if you look at statistics by Gartner, we can see that the number of IoT devices is exponentially increasing, and by 2020, that's going to be in the trillions. And the consumer space is going to outweigh the business space. This includes devices in your home, your wearable tech, cars. Now, if you look at the amount of data these devices are going to be generating, there's going to be a need for people to work with this data and be able to transform it and provide business with insights. So that brings back the idea to me to actually use a Raspberry Pi to do something with data. Let's take these examples. In the home, smart fridges that automatically order food, smart watches, smartphones, everyone carries them around. Your PCs at work, all connected to the internet and generating data. The next important thing is all of these devices are creating data, but as well as one of the important factors that need to be considered with this data is the security around it. Because if this data is not secure and there's confidential information in it, or it can cause a problem for the user, this can be a serious issue. If we take, for example, this case where a Jeep that was connected to the internet hackers were able to compromise it and drive it while the driver was in it, and the driver had no control. So security is one of the important factors that has been looked upon with IoT devices and how we can improve that. Back to the Pi. If you look at the history of the Pi, it started in 2012 with the main aim being to teach basic computer science skills in colleges and universities across the UK. Yes, it's made in the UK, not in China. So the best part of this is that it's a low-cost device and minimum spend needed to set it up. If you look at the current versions, you have the Pi 3, which they released a new version recently that has better graphics, as well as the Pi 0. The difference being in the price, in that the Pi 0 is a lighter-weight version that provides wireless connectivity for your IoT projects. As such, for simple projects, you won't necessarily need a lot of memory and processing power as what you get from the Pi 3. So I'm sure some of you might have gone on holiday at some point and come back home to find your plants dead. Well, this can be solved with a Raspberry Pi by automating your garden and your watering system. I'm sure many of you would also like to have an automated bartender in your offices. After getting the Pi out of the box, I was excited to get it up and running. So the first thing I did was find out, how do I load it up? How do I power it on? That brought me to Raspbian, which is the official operating system for the Raspberry Pi. Its simple installation is done by using Noobs, which is the desktop installer, which you use to flash a memory card. You load the memory card on the Pi, and it's ready to go. Obviously, being interested in focusing on data projects, I was more interested in looking at what can I do with the Pi that focuses specifically on data, as well as can help me learn stuff that I can use at work and as well as a practical experiment. And that's what brought me to no audio. Okay. So I'm going to skip this. Okay, you can watch the video. Windows 10. Just show you some sample of applications that you can use for Windows 10 IoT Core. So while that's playing, I'm going to ask, does anyone have any questions? Yes? I've seen them anything between 120 and 150 for the device alone, but they have been restricting that to 1 unit per customer. Because I think globally the demand has been great, and the demand is outstripping the supply. So I think the Pi 0 is either it's a dual core or single core compared to the Pi 3, which is a quad core processor, and your RAM and the amount of memory in it is 512 compared to a gig of RAM. So that's where as well as your connectivity. It doesn't have USB ports on it or an Ethernet cable. It's designed on Ethernet port, so it's designed for wireless connectivity of your devices. Okay. Any other questions? Cool. So, this is an interesting bit that I came across. And I think this goes well with the next topic that I'm going to talk about. What I'm going to tell you next is about the prerequisites that you need before you actually get started with the device, which I found was beneficial in my case. So the first thing is memory. I started off with an old memory card I had lying around, and this didn't work in installation. So I had to get myself one of these memory cards, either Samsung Evo or a SanDisk Ultra 32 gigabyte. So these are recommended, and the simple reason being is that they are classified as being class 10, being high speed, high performance than your class 4 memory cards, which I initially used. Next thing would be a decent power supply, which is helpful if you want to connect external sensors to your device, and those need additional power. And the development environment. This was a bit tricky in that I needed to set up everything prior to installing Visual Studio. Now, I chose to add stuff as add-ons, and this ended up with dependency errors across the apps, which my only solution to this was to reinstall Visual Studio and add on the extension Universal Windows App Development Tools as part of the installation. The setup for Windows 10 IoT Core is pretty simple in that there is a dashboard that you're provided with and provides you with all the details you need to fill in. It even provides you with the ability to specify your wireless network details, and this all gets loaded onto the memory card. Once you put the memory card onto your device, it's ready to connect to your network. Even though I got all those prerequisites right, I was still having problems. And one example of that would be creating my first app. So I updated my Visual Studio with the latest packages, used projects to create a new app using the default template. This worked great until I decided to run it. And it turns out that I had to find out the hard way that upgrading one package without upgrading the rest of the dependencies doesn't really help, in that there are compatibility issues with packages and all need to be in line in terms of versioning. Once I got the app running, that brought me to Azure. Now, Azure is big. There's lots of apps and services that we can use. However, once I was ready to connect to Azure, this is how I felt. Like, where do I start? Where do I go next? To start with, Azure provides you with an IoT hub to connect your IoT devices to. And this is really great in that it provides bidirectional communication. That is, from your device to the cloud and from the cloud to your device, so that you can monitor it from anywhere, anytime, as long as it's connected to the internet. The next thing is storage options. Azure provides you with premium storage, and as such, it comes at a cost. In that, as a developer, I had been looking at which was the most viable option for me to play around with. And that brought me to locally redundant storage, in that it's not replicated, doesn't have secondary locations for backup, and it's only three sets of copies of data is maintained. So if you are trying to play with Azure storage, and I mean, if you're playing with it and not in a development environment, go with locally redundant storage. Function apps. These are used in Azure to process data or messages sent to the cloud. When you're using Windows 10 IoT Core, you can send a message in JSON format to your IoT hub. Now, we need to process this and store it some way, or send it some way. So, Functions apps allow you to read in the JSON data, transform it into a storable format. In my case, I use Azure Table Storage, and extracted messages. For example, if I'm sending temperature information from a sensor that I have running. That was cool in that it took the timestamp of when the reading was done, transformed the message, stored it as a record in my Azure table, and I was able to use it directly from there. But when I got to this point, I was confused. I had no idea what I was doing. One of the big things with Azure is your geolocation, and that is whenever you set up a different component, you need to ensure that the geolocations align together, so that if you put one in Europe and you put another one in the US, they need to be in the same location so that the other app can see the service that you're trying to add to it. At the end of this, I was able to use Stream Analytics to get my data from my IoT device into Power BI Live. And this is something additional that you don't necessarily need to do, but it's a nice feature to learn in that it's streaming data directly from your device to a live dashboard, and no need to store it in Azure storage. So to recap, things you need before you get started with Raspberry Pi is the Pi, a power supply, the correct memory card, and a properly set up development environment. On the cloud side, what you need is an IoT hub, storage accounts, know how to configure your function app and ensure that all of them are in the same geo zone. And finally, if you like to try Stream Analytics to get your data streaming directly to live dashboards in Power BI, you can do that. Thank you. And those of you who have great photos and answers my questions, you can tweet me at Arohan Naidoo and at DevConf.